Today on CityCast Boise, winter is here and it's the perfect time to try snowshoeing. We've got the best trail ideas, whether you're looking for a peaceful trek near Bogus Basin or a picture-perfect journey to a snowy hot spring. Plus, tips for finding budget-friendly gear and getting started. It's Thursday, January 9th. I'm Lindsay Van Allen, and this is what Boise's talking about. I'm chatting with contributor Heath Drusen, and he's here to give me a crash course, hopefully not literally, on the ins and outs of snowshoeing. Thanks for joining me today, Heath.
Yeah, no problem. Snowshoeing is a lot of fun and anyone can do it.
So what got you into snowshoeing and why do you enjoy it?
Snowshoeing is essentially a way to hike in the winter. Obviously, our mountain trails in the winter are covered in snow, which presents a problem, and snowshoes provide a solution. So I like it because they're so simple, and it gives just about anybody the opportunity to get out on the trails when there's snow. And I love being in the mountains and the woods on a quiet day with sparkling snow where you just hear some birds in the background. It's just very peaceful. And snowshoeing is a way to do it.
And I'm just curious because, we have lots of different types of trails around the area. So with snowshoeing, are you more often going to like a destination or a spot with a view, or is it more about, just walking through the snow, surrounded by the trees, catching views of wildlife?
It can be both, right? It depends where you go. I would say in our local area, it's a lot more kind of being in the forest and just enjoying the peace and maybe seeing some wildlife too. But if you go farther afield, you can go to some pretty cool snowshoe spots with some pretty stunning views. So you can kind of make it what you want. If there's a trail, you can snowshoe.
Okay, so full disclosure, I've never been snowshoeing before, but it seems like how you describe it, it's walking with special shoes in the snow. So it seems like I wouldn't need a class or an instructor to get started, right? Or is that maybe my rookie false confidence?
You do not need a class, which is great. You don't need an instructor. Essentially what snowshoes are is basically they're these big, wide plastic things, and they come in a couple different shapes. And then you've got these paddles under your feet that the surface area basically just keeps you from sinking. Now, it'll take a little, a few minutes or maybe a little longer to get used to it, because you kind of have to step up, you have to pick your legs up a little more, and you have to make sure you don't you don't drop the front of the snowshoe into the snow. And yeah, you might fall a few times, but it's not like falling when you're skiing, right? You're not going fast. But once you get the hang of it, you're basically just walking. Your technique's a little bit different, but yeah.
Well, and that does make it seem like it is quite a bit more accessible than skiing already. So what gear do I need to get started? Is it just the special snowshoes, or is there other gear that you recommend that people get if they want to get started or if they're planning on going out snowshoeing?
So basically, if you've got winter clothes, that's most of the gear that you need just to be warm. The snowshoes themselves, you can buy or rent. You can get a pretty decent pair new for $100, especially if you hit the sales. You can go up from there. You can get some fancy stuff for $400. You don't need that for just a casual walk in the woods. Some people like to use poles, just regular ski poles. You don't need special poles. I do both. I kind of think you don't need them, but some people like to have them, and if they fall over, it maybe helps you get up. But that's basically it. And you can get snowshoe rentals for $15. Ski House is one local place in Boise, and I looked up ahead of time. Poles and snowshoes, $15 a day. So pretty cheap. And here's the thing. Idaho is, I think, 63% federal land. So that means you've got national forest everywhere where you can just go walking for free. You don't need to get a lift ticket. And that's one of the coolest things. Like, we're in a place where you really can do this for almost free.
Are there, especially because I mean, I haven't been before, are there places to look up what trails are good? Is this, I need to know somebody to know where it's good? Are there places I can look up, like, here's, federal land where you can go snowshoeing and, here's some great paths. What's a way to find out where to go?
So you can go like the Boise National Forest. We're right on the edge of the Boise National Forest. You're in it, in fact, if you drive up to Bogus. So you can look at Boise National Forest maps and you can see where some trails are. You can also just look for those brown signs, those brown Forest Service signs. And if it's a Forest Service road or a Forest Service trail, you're good. You can go. So if you drive to Idaho City, you can be there. If the road's clear, you can be there in an hour, right? There are trails on the way to Idaho City. So it's really close.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if there's enough snow, you can go there. And there are these like brown Forest Service signs that'll tell you that it's okay to go. You can also go up to Bogus. I believe you have to buy a ski pass of some sort if you go on their trails. But there are also Forest Service trails close to Bogus Basin where you can just kind of go off into the woods. And that's the closest. And actually, I will say a great place if the snow is low enough. It depends how cold it's been and how much it's snowed. But the Stack Rock Trail is right on the way to Bogus Basin. There's a big parking pullout / parking lot there. It's right when you hit about 5,000 feet of elevation on the road. And people like to sled there too. That's a great trail to snowshoe. It costs nothing. If the snow is good, it's really cool. And you're looking out over the Treasure Valley towards the Owyhee Mountains. And you can be on the trail there in like 25 minutes. So a lot of good local options.
Okay, with free trails and really inexpensive equipment, you've already kind of sold me on this. I'm a little bit sold. There is one factor for me. I don't like to be cold. And I know that's a big hurdle for snow-based activities. But Heath, are there any ways to mitigate the cold so that it can be more enjoyable?
So you want to walk in the woods in the winter, but be warm.
Well, maybe just only lightly cold on my exposed face. Like, is this something where I just need to like speed walk it to keep me toasty, or I'm just going to have to like accept being cold?
Well, so you got at one thing. Look, if you go on these mountain trails and you get a little incline, you'll warm up just by working out, and that helps. One thing I really like to do, my friend does this all the time, who I backcountry ski with, and I noticed it, and I was like, oh, why don't I do that? Bring a nice big insulated thermos of tea. Have a hot beverage, right? Whether it's tea or whatever you like. I love having hot tea in my backpack, and then when you're feeling cold, drink that, and it warms you up. It's good for you. So I mean, it's a simple suggestion, but having a nice warm drink, that'll really help. I would say non-alcoholic. Alcohol will make you feel warmer, but it actually make you colder. So go with the tea and save the booze for the après walk.
Après walk. No, that's a good, and then you stay hydrated too. So we're all trying to stay hydrated and have fun in the snow. I think that is a great tip. I always love a warm beverage, and that actually makes this sound even more appealing. I'm honestly really sold on this. So where is your personal favorite place to snowshoe near Boise?
My personal favorite place. So I actually really do like some trails around Idaho City. Not because they're the most stunning, but they're kind of secrets. Like, nobody goes there. And you're in the forest and it's really peaceful. So if you go up 21 towards Idaho City, just look for some Forest Service trails before you actually hit the town, and they're all really fun. Now, I will say The snow, they have to have enough snow because it's not a super high elevation place.
How much snow is enough snow?
It depends on the place, but and how much kind of brush there is. But if it doesn't need much. Like if there's a foot of snow, you're probably good to snowshoe. One place that's a little farther away, and I think it's probably a place I've mentioned in different episodes for different reasons, is Bonneville Hot Springs. You can snowshoe to a hot spring there, and that is magical, and it's really easy. It's a mile and it's flat, and you're surrounded by beautiful mountains, and then you can soak in a hot spring. And even if you don't want to soak in a hot spring, it's a really cool place to just go snowshoe and take in the mountains. It's about 2 hours away, and it won't be too crowded. Like it's pretty relaxed in the winter.
Heath, who are the people who snowshoe to the Bonneville Hot Springs and then don't get in the hot springs? Who would those people even be?
Okay, I'm not going to name names, but I have a friend who went to Bonneville Hot Springs, and he had never been soaking in a hot spring before, and I was very excited for him. And he came back, and I said, "Hey, like, how was it? Like, did you enjoy the water?" And he said, I was warm enough in my jacket, so I didn't dip in the hot springs.
What?
And I was like, what? That's not the point of a hot spring.
That's not. What?
So I know the person who goes all the way there and doesn't go in the hot spring, and they exist. They're out there.
Huh.
Yeah.
My flabbers are gasted.
I was stunned. Don't be that guy. It's very like take a dip.
Are there any beginner spots that you recommend? Maybe when you're just like trying to learn how to get your steps down, or, kind of figuring out how to do it where it's going to be, maybe relatively flat, pretty easy for beginners. You're not going to, get lost or something.
All the places I mentioned, honestly, are pretty fine for that. I would say the closest, if the snow is low enough, that Stack Rock area, great place to put them on and just learn. Or go up to Bogus Basin before you take the plunge and get a ticket. And they're not very expensive for snowshoeing, but you can walk around the parking lot and get your bearings and see if you like it. That I would say is the easiest area to do it. And then you're not out in the woods, and you're not, you can always just, if you don't like it, you can duck inside and get a hot chocolate if you want, and you haven't wasted your day.
Perfect. And just to double check and clarify, at Bogus Basin, some of the trails are for snowshoe and some are for skiing, right? What's maybe the etiquette there, or how do you know which is for which?
So double check. They'll have signs that'll tell you. Double check the etiquette. But essentially, there are trails that are mixed use where you can snowshoe and cross country ski. What you want to do is they'll tell you where to stay on the trail as a snowshoer. And what you never, ever want to do, and this is for Bogus or anywhere else I mentioned, when you see it's a very obvious cross country ski track cut where it's like two ski sized trails, like you see those are called classic tracks. Never walk in them as a snowshoer, because you'll mess up the tracks and it won't be as fun for the skiers. And you've got plenty of room outside of those tracks. So you'll know what I'm talking about when you see it. Just don't walk in the tracks that have obviously been cut in the ground for skiing.
What are some spots that are really great for snowshoeing in your opinion, but might be a little further away? Like, maybe really getting out of town, you want to get away for the weekend. What are some spots you'd recommend?
Go to Stanley. Stanley in the winter is great, and it's cold, but the snowshoeing is amazing, and you're looking at the Sawtooth Mountains, and there's a lot of options there. So if you go to Stanley and you're before or after the town, pretty much any road there with snow, you can go down, and you can see some really cool stuff. And often you can get a hotel there for it won't break the bank, and you can have a really nice weekend in the Sawtooth without the crowds. And I really love that. I highly recommend it.
Well, Heath, do you have any other tips or things that people should know about if they're getting into snowshoeing, or things that maybe you wish somebody would have told you when you were getting into it in this area?
I mean, the main thing is just get like good warm clothes and, clothes that the best is if they're clothes like wool clothes that if they get a little wet, they won't be as cold. But that's the main thing. And if you're going to spend a little bit of money on an item, a little more money on an item, get good gloves. Gloves are the thing that I feel like when you cheap out on those, if you have wet hands, ooh, that'll ruin your day. So you can get away with cheaper clothes with a lot of other items, but get some good gloves because you're going to be potentially holding your poles and your hands can get cold. But if you have nice toasty gloves, then you'll be pretty happy.
Well, Heath, thank you so much. I think I'm definitely sold on this. I think I'm going to try it out. And I really appreciate all the tips and insight.
No problem. Yeah. Get out there in the mountains and tell me how you like it.
That's all for today here on CityCast Boise. If you enjoyed the show, you should subscribe to our Hey Boise newsletter for upcoming snowshoe events. We'll be back tomorrow morning with our Friday news roundup. You won't want to miss it.